Hello, everybody. It is the 15th of October, and we are live with the view from the top. We have got an amazing show for you lined up today. You are going to love it, and we've got some superb guests just waiting backstage to chat with you. So wherever you are in the world, please join in the conversation, write in the comments box, tell us who you are, where you are, what's going on in your world, what the weather's like, what you're doing. Let's find out who's out there. I see Yaroslav's is here. We got Jesse from Fiddy, people coming in from all over the place, which is fantastic. From Chicago's in the house. Nice to see you, Susie. And Manda, of course, from Edinburgh, a previous guest on the show. So many wonderful people coming in today. So why? What have we got for you today? Well, I'm delighted to say that our main segment of the day is going to be talking about the future of relocation services. And we're going to be talking about human-centered relocation supported by technology. So not technology-led relocation, but human-centered relocation, which I think is hugely important, but how technology will support that. And it's going to be a fascinating discussion. We're looking forward to your insights. And we've got backstage Laurie Ryan and Meredith Morris from Benivo, who are going to be sharing some really interesting stuff all about that. But not only that, we've got backstage, we've got Julie Onslow Cole from Fragment talking to us about some immigration updates. From Vialto Partners, we've got Julie Barron and Eileen Milani. And not only that, but we've also got Claire Tennant-Skull from FEM, who's going to be telling us all about the FEM and EMAs and what's going on with their big conference and the EMAs next week. So a really exciting show today. We are live right now on LinkedIn. We are live on YouTube. And if you want to listen to us as a podcast, we're also available on Spotify. Now, I know a lot of you do like to get your CPE codes, and we are delighted to be able to offer you your CPE codes from Worldwide ERC. Many thanks to our good friends there. But also, if you want to get your CPE codes from HRCI or SHRM, then again, many thanks to our good friends at Rocket Mortgage, who have given us that information too. So a really fascinating day we've got lined up. But what's been going on in the last 7 days in the wonderful world of global mobility? Why don't we have a look at what all the breaking news is? What's been going on in our world? So there we have it. Congratulations to everyone who's been promoted, to everyone who's got a new job. And of course, there's lots of jobs out there. So if you've got, if there's a job you want to apply for, well, it's up there on that video, contact them directly. All we do is just post information. But if you've got a job opening you want to share, then let us know and we'll try and promote your job opportunity next week. And indeed, if you've got a bit of good news you want to share, maybe you've been promoted, maybe you've got a new job, maybe your organization's made an acquisition or something else has happened in your industry, then let us know. And if we can do anything to help promote you within the global mobility community, then just let us know and we are happy to do so. So we're now going to move on and we're going to be talking about immigration. Who better to talk to us about immigration than the legend that is Julia Onslow Cole? So you know how it works, everybody. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's welcome to our stage Julia Onslow Cole. How are you doing?
Hi, Brian. Hi. Very well.
Hi.
And it's so lovely that Eileen Mullane is on today.
I know it's like, oh, it's just such a great group of people we've got on the show today. And I know she's got a really interesting survey she's going to be updating us about. But tell us, Julia, what's been going on in the world of immigration that you want to talk to us about today?
Yes. So I wanted to just tell everyone about digital borders. And, you know, there's been a lot of countries that have really invested a lot of money in upgrading their border security system. And it does have quite a profound impact on travelers, on employers, and generally for compliance programs. So the UK electronic traveller scheme, which you have to fill in advanced passenger information. And now this scheme has been rolled. Oh, I'm really sorry. Okay, I'm really sorry. Shall I stop there?
I think, Julie, what we're going to do is we're going to move to talk about tax.
Yes.
If you could maybe get one of your colleagues come back, maybe on your phone or a different device. I think we're getting interference. But we're going to move now to do our tax update, and we'll get back to you, Julia, a bit later in the show. So without every further ado, everybody, let's welcome to our stage Julie Barron and Eileen Mullane from Vialto Partners. Julie, hi, and my old
Brian
is in the house. So
Eileen is laughing at my video, I think, Brian. Look at her, just laughing and laughing.
I'm not laughing. I'm just so happy to be here. That's all.
We are happy to have you here. So, Julie, Eileen, what are we talking about today?
So
Eileen is going to talk to us about our latest survey that Vialto has done, and I thought this kind of talked a little bit and was on theme with your show today, which is about relocation. So go over to you, Eileen.
Thanks so much, Julie, and thanks, Brian, for the warm welcome. So we did want to share some of the highlights of our most recent survey. This closed over the summer, called Mobility Matters 2025, and we are happy to share the link with all of you. So there's a free download of the report if you're interested. This survey focused on what mobility leaders are really going to be focused on over the next 12 months. What are their areas of priority? What are their strategic goals for the next year? Really interesting. Obviously, we've been running surveys for a long time, but this was the first time where the top priority was a four-way tie. So really a combination of both strategic and operational activities. So the four areas of focus are: how are we aligning mobility with talent? Certainly not a new issue for any of us kind of old timers like myself, but certainly what we're seeing now is a little bit different. It's not just talking about it. It's not just a strategic statement, but how do they actually bring this to life? What is the process behind it? How do they really ensure that talent is embedded in the selection, that opportunities are transparent across the organization? So a little bit different. This is music to Julie's ears. Compliance is top of mind for everyone. Really kind of challenged with all of the different types of compliance, not just income tax, but employment tax, Social Security, Posted Workers Directive, all of those things. And certainly the complexities around business travel and remote work add to kind of the compliance considerations. Now we have employee experience. So that's been in the top few over the past couple of years. I think what we're seeing now is companies are defining it differently. In the past, it was kind of a no noise approach. Was it good or an optimal employee experience? Now organizations really thinking, with all of the advancement in technology and AI, what does that look like in the future? How does that impact our employee experience? And really trying to define that for the organization. And last but not least, can we use innovation to really streamline our processes and make them more efficient? I think some of you may have heard this quote from me. There's about 800 tasks in an end-to-end mobility process. For the majority of companies, only about half of them are automated, but in reality, about 75 to 80% could be automated. So companies are really looking for that. How do we get more efficient? How do we get more effective? The challenge is...
I'm going to come on that because I so agree with you. I think that's such a great point. I know from a Benivo point of view, I mean, our rule of thumb is if you have ever anywhere in a process copied something and pasted it, then that's something that can be done by automation. I mean, that's just one very simple.
That's a good rule of thumb, Brian.
Yeah. Or another one is if you've ever sent an email to somebody where you're saying pretty much the same thing as you sent in a previous email, that's again something that could have been automated. So there's so much there that can be done. Yeah.
And I think companies are thinking outside the box. How do we use kind of cool tools to not just educate, but how do we kind of embed that in our process so there's education along the way and actually get all the way through initiation or the next task? Companies struggling, as I mentioned, with compliance, they rank that #1 as their top challenge for the next year. No surprise, cost management and cost effectiveness was right up in the top 3. And that's really across every single industry sector. And what we're seeing now is a little bit different than we saw in the past, where it's not just kind of tweaking policy kind of around the fringe, a little bit of savings here, a little bit of savings there, but really fundamentally pulling back the covers on the operating model. How does the organization deliver mobility to the enterprise, and what changes could they make from that perspective? And a lot of organizations, again, going back to kind of the beginning as to why do we have a mobility program, has that changed over the past couple of years? A lot of companies did see fundamental shifts in their business strategy post-COVID, and really how does that impact the mobility strategy? So we're seeing a lot of focus on that, and companies really struggling if the strategy has changed. What are we now thinking about from a policy and process perspective? How agile is the rest of the function to kind of keep up with that change in strategy? So I think there's lots of excitement on the horizon, lots of opportunities for all mobility leaders. As I mentioned, please feel free to download the survey. There's also a lot of benchmarking information from a policy perspective as well. That was kind of part 2 of the survey.
So thank you so much for that. It's an amazing survey. And as we've said, it's available to download from the Vialto website, and we've had that banner up there. So great work, Eileen. Great work, Julie. Great work to everybody at Vialto. I'm now delighted to say that we've got Julia back. So we're going to we'll say goodbye to Julie and to Eileen. So let's just say goodbye to them. And we're going to try and bring Julia back. So let's fingers crossed it works this time. Julia, how are you doing?
Oh, yes. Sorry about that. Yeah, the survey from Eileen and sounds fantastic. And one of the things I wanted to cover is what you need to put in your policies. So I was going to talk today about digital borders and travel compliance. And sorry for the interruption earlier, but I was just talking about the UK ETA system. This is the advanced passenger system. And we're now getting used as we travel to fill in more and more of this information. And the idea for filling it in for the governments is it can collect the data and it can then actually tweak the system. And we're seeing this really live in the UK in particular. So what's happening is they're getting the data of all the travellers coming in. Now they've got this advanced passenger information. The biggest number of nationals coming in fact, US nationals. The second biggest is German. But what they're also seeing is they're seeing a lot of countries where nationals are coming and then applying for asylum. And what they're doing is then applying a visa requirement, because this system is really for non-visa nationals, so that if you need a visa, it's obviously slightly more difficult to come in. So in fact, in the last 48 hours, they've added Botswana to the list of countries that need visas, and more recently, Colombia and Trinidad and Tobago. So that's what we're seeing. So what does it really mean for employers? So what it means is that you've got to be aware that your employees do have to fill in these advanced passenger forms, and that they need to get in the UK an ETA, but there's lots of other schemes they need in other countries. So make sure you're communicating this to your workforce, and also consider, like in your policy, like Eileen's talking about all the policy and reviewing policies. Do you need to pay for it? Are you going to support them? And do you need to update your travel policy? And then would you, for example, track when these schemes run out for them? Because, for example, ETA in the UK, you can get that for 2 years. Would you monitor expiry dates so that you know if people are travel ready? So if, for example, there's a crisis in the country where you'd need to go to for this advanced passenger information, you know, well, those people could go immediately. They wouldn't have to apply for an ETA. The other thing is, and this is one of the absolute biggest shifts we've ever seen in travellers in the Schengen area, is this new European entry-exit system. And it's replacing passport stamping on the borders. And what it really means is that Europe is going to be really tracking very carefully the entry and exit records. And the thing is that if you want to stay in Europe as a visitor, you can only do so for 90 days and 180 days. And this really does impact a lot of people. I mean, particular people who have second homes in those countries, and they go as you know, holiday makers. And then you might have someone who has a home in that country, and also they're going on lots of business visits. Well, there's no differentiator between like a quick business visit, which is truly just a business visit, and visiting your home. And so actually your 90 and 180 days could quickly go. And people have been quite relaxed about it because, you know, these were not really, it wasn't a digitalized system, but it's going to be hugely more rigorous. And the system will retain all the data, it will flag risks, it will look at patterns of travel, and companies really should...
It's gone from basically being unlikely to be caught if you sort of overstayed a bit to pretty much you're going to be caught.
Yes, exactly, Brian. Yeah. So we all need to find an Irish grandparent. Yeah.
Absolutely.
If we're British, yeah. But, you know, companies should really track, you know, who's going where for how long, and, you know, think about it, because it has impacts on your individuals, but it also has impacts on compliance. And then the last thing I want to say is that we're also waiting for the ETIAS scheme, and this will be a new scheme that will be rolled out next year, where you will have to give this advanced information. So it'll be even more stringent, and you will need this online travel authority. You can do it on a mobile app, and it will be valid for 3 years. But all of the things that I've said that companies need to think about apply obviously to this system. Are you going to pay for it? Are you tracking what people are doing? Are you making sure they're travel ready? And all of these things. So it is actually for governments helpful because it's making their borders more secure and they're really tracking. But for companies and individuals, it's actually, you know, another mobility headache.
Okay, so Julia, thank you so much for that. As Christopher said, kids today will never know the joy of flipping through a passport full of stamps, the original travel flex. And I tell you, Chris, my guess is the next generation, you know, your grandkids or what have you, they won't even know what a passport is. I think the whole thing will go digital in years to come.
I have to say that, Chris, when we left Brexit, and it was so heartbreaking actually for the first time getting a stamp, you know, when entering the European Union.
Absolutely. So we're going to now move on, and I'm just going to tell the audience actually that the top 100 list is open, and if you'd like to nominate anybody to be, or as many as possible to be, top 100 AI champions, the list is now open for nomination. So I'm just going to run that video, and then after the video is over, I'm going to bring onto stage the amazing Claire Tennant-Scull from FBM to tell us all about the Emmas and the summit that happens next week. So everybody, a big thank you to Julie Onslow Cole. Despite the technology, we got there. The show always goes on, and a big welcome to Claire Tennant-Scull. And in between the two, have a look at this video and just remember to nominate people for this year's top 100 list. So there we have it. Claire, wonderful to see you. How are you doing?
Fine, thank you, Brian. Thanks very much for the warm welcome. It's so interesting listening to your guests on the show and all the updates. And yes, I agree with Julia. It was hard to see those stamps going back into our passports in some ways, but I will miss them too. So yes, very interesting stuff.
Just to say, before we get on to here, talk about FEM, as I said, the top 100 nominations are open. So out there in the audience, if you know of anybody who's got a passion for AI, an in-house professional who's got a passion for AI, then do make sure you nominate. Let's get as many people recognized as possible for their passion in this technology that is changing our world. So moving on, it's a big week for you coming up. You've got the Emmas and you've got the summit. Tell us what's in store. What can we all expect? I'm going to be there, but tell us what can we expect?
Well, as ever, the summit takes place, excuse me, over 2 days. So that gives us freedom and scope to explore so many different themes and issues. I think some of the key things will be, of course, the changes in geopolitics and all the sort of immigration and tax compliance and tariffs and all the sort of implications for business. So we'll start off on day one with a really fascinating keynote. I think we've got Anders Hall, who is the State Secretary for Migration at the Swedish government. Okay. He's going to be giving us a keynote speech because Sweden is doing some very interesting things around migration and particularly skilled migration. So that will be some radical proposals that he's going to put in front of us. And then we'll go to some questions. We've got Madeleine Sumption there from the Migration Observatory. She's also on the MAC. We've got Carol Doughty from VFS, they process all the visas and so on. And Ian Robinson from Vialto too, who's going to kind of work as our interpreter between government and business, because obviously he's worked in both. So I think that's going to be a really interesting, lively session. We've got other sessions exploring geopolitics and so on. And then I think technology is also another one, and I feel as though
I know we're running an expert insight section.
You are, yes.
It's on day one with
it's going to be a case study, isn't it, and a demonstration, so people can really get hands-on.
We've got guests from both London Stock Exchange Group and from Slalom, and they're going to be joining us on the day.
Exactly. Yes. And I think, we've got a panel discussion on technology and transformation later that day too, on day one. And I think it's a really interesting one. I've been doing the panel briefings and so on. I'm glad to say we've kind of moved on from some of the kind of rather vague, general points about technology. And it's so interesting now to hear about the tangible benefits and some of the challenges. We're also exploring some of the ethical side to this and so on. So I think it's, we're digging a lot deeper now. And actually, I think that's been kind of reflected in the Emma's nominations too. We've moved on from just assignee technology, assignee management technology, to much more bespoke things. And I think that's really interesting too. And of course, another big,
the Emmas itself, I'm going to have to rush you for time, I'm afraid, but the Emmas itself is normally pretty sold out. So, are there any last minute tickets available?
Yes, we always keep back a few a table or so for last minute.
How many people do you expect to have with you for the dinner?
Probably just under 400. So it's going to be, we actually have a little bit less space this year because we've got a bigger stage. So yes, we might have to lose a couple of tables once we look at it again. But yes, it's looking very busy, and we've got a great shortlist this year. Really fantastic, with companies who've never engaged with us before. So I think it's going to be a really interesting night. We've got Marcus Brigstock as our host, who I'm really excited about. I love his comedy. And I think it's just going to be great fun. It's always a really good time of year, I think, because there's time to reflect on what's gone and then time to look forward to next year. So, cool. But one thing I would say, somebody said this to me recently, one of our sponsors actually, who engages with us a lot. And he said he always gets annoyed that some people only come to the Emmas, they don't come to the summit. And it's a bit like being invited to a dinner party and you just turn up for pudding. So I'm going to say, come to the summit first, because you'll make great connections with people, and then you can really capitalize on that at the Emmas.
Okay. We need to move on, Claire, but I just want to say, I fully agree with you. Do come to the day as well, both days indeed.
Yes.
I mean, they are fantastic events, and I know it's going to be just fantastic. I should say that we at Benivo are also hosting a private corporate dinner called Mobility Intelligence in Action. And I know a number of our people probably watching the show are coming, but if anybody wants to come, reach out to me or to Tally or to anybody that you know at Benivo, and we'll see what we can do.
That's day one, isn't it?
That's day one, absolutely. Yeah, day two, we're all at the Emmas. This is day one after after the drinks. So just near the hotel. So we're now going to move on, and we're going to be talking about the revolution that is going on in relocation management. I've got backstage Meredith Myers and Laurie Ryan from Benivo. So you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's talk about the future of relocation management. Hey, Laurie. Hey, Meredith. Great to see you. And we're going to be talking about the future of relocation services today. But before we do, let's just find out a bit about you guys for those people who don't, who maybe don't know you. So I'll start with you, Laurie. Just tell us a bit about yourself and your background in relocation management, and maybe what you've seen in terms of how the industry has evolved over the last, however many years, in particular regarding I suppose the changing needs of companies and their employees. But start off, just tell us a bit about yourselves and your perspective on things, the changes you've seen.
You bet. I have about 10 years, a decade in relocation management services, 2 previous RMCs, primarily sitting in the IT desk and client configuration piece. And, back what I've seen over the last decade, before I took a break to teach people how to use AI for 2.5 years, I saw that.
I love that. I mean, you're so ahead. I mean, you are so Benivo. You're so ahead of the curve that you were sort of an AI guru before most of us even knew what AI was, which is amazing.
Completely by accident, Brian. Yeah. By learning out loud and just being able to say, "Oh, look how that worked. Who knew?"
Yeah.
But 10 years ago when I came in, it primarily, it was long-term, short-term, per moves. And now it just feels like everything has evolved to give employees a little more control and flexibility. And services, used to be very well defined. And now it just feels like there's way more room, whether it's donating things or, letting people, pick out their own furniture as opposed to moving their household goods and boxes. Yeah. So that's what I've seen in the evolution.
Okay. And Meredith, tell us a bit about yourself and your perspectives.
Yeah, thank you so much. Excited to be here today. Before I talk about myself, just because we were promoting FEM, I just got to say real quick to the audience, anybody that's going to WERC, Laurie and I are going to be there. Yeah. So connect with us. And we're actually having a breakfast on the 29th. So, hit us up, DM us, let us know if you'd like to attend. So there we go. It's a corporate breakfast.
It really is conference season, isn't it? We had FBM, we've got Worldwide ERC, we've got GME. It's like, this is peak event time, and they're also got such great events.
Oh yeah, exactly. Tis the season, and we love seeing everybody, as Claire said, in 3D. So it's great. So a little bit about myself. So I sit in Houston, Texas. My background is a little over 20 plus years in global mobility, 10 plus in about the RMC space. Mine was more on the consultative, really, calling on different organizations and helping them build out what that infrastructure was going to look like. And then I have a very diverse skill set. So from employer of record to destination services, hold my Texas real estate license, done a little bit of everything, corporate housing. So teams out there, yeah, we're feeling it. But, to your question about what I've seen, change in mobility, I really want to kind of pivot off what Lori said as well. I've seen the role of, our global mobility managers and professionals, and even those of us, that are, supporting the organizations. I've seen the roles change, and, it's really becoming more about being strategic, and a lot of that's being driven from the C-suite, right? I've seen a lot more innovation. I've also seen, even though I know DEI&B, here in the U.S. has been, destroyed a little bit, but, it's still a very poignant point in a lot of the organizations in supporting their employees. I've also seen workforce transformation. So there's just been a lot of pivot, and, the workforce is changing and the talent is changing, and how companies are really looking at those populations. So, I've seen that not just from core benefits, but what that employee looks like that's going out on assignment, and how are they managing that from a respective point within their organizations.
So maybe let's drill down into that a bit. I mean, we're seeing this evolving landscape. And when you're in this landscape, my experience is that clients are sort of sometimes expressing a bit of concern. They're saying, yeah, we want all this cool tech, but actually we want the high touch as well. In fact, we want the high touch to lead it. So they're saying it's not, if you like, it's not an or discussion. It's not, oh, we want tech or we want high touch. It's an and discussion. We want it all. We want it all. We want it now. I mean, we get not only that, but they want a seamless transition. So we want it all. We want it now, and we don't want to pay for the transition itself either. We want it sort of, implemented seamlessly and quick. So, what are the key elements that companies should be looking for to ensure that they're getting that balance of the essential hand-holding and the smooth experience, but supported by the experienced consultants and, of course, the vendor network? How do we have it all?
Yeah, I can start with that. So, Lori and I were kind of bouncing off from each other yesterday. We didn't really rehearse anybody out there, just so y'all know. But, we really had this deep conversation. And, what we're seeing and what I have been seeing over the years is that, really organizations are at a highly pivotal time. I mean, there's been so much change over the past, 5, 6, 7 years, and really looking at, like you said, Brian, I mean, we are seeing that a lot of companies are saying, you know what, we really need that human-centric touch. We really want that experience. We want to make sure that we have that support for, our employees, because that talent's critical. There's a cost to talent. And it can be a huge cost depending on, that role that you're filling, and it has to be successful. So mobility teams are really striving to do that. But then they also are working from, spreadsheets. And we see this a lot: spreadsheets, manual processes, unautomated workflows, and, and disconnected systems on top of that, working through multiple different systems. And, how do they balance that piece of it? And multi-generations in the workforce too now. 5 of them. So, I think that when they're really looking...
Tell us about these 5 generations for who don't know. What are we talking about there?
Yeah, I'll let Lori touch on that, because we were talking about that too. That complicates everything even more for our teams.
I went down an absolute rabbit hole this week. Once learned, traditionalists, that's like my parents' age, like close to 80, they're sticking in there, not ready to retire. And then you've got the boomers, the Gen X, the millennials, and now the Gen Z entering. And it's amazing. Like, I think about from my dad to my kids and how different it is in what they want in work, and whether it's going to the office, if they're open to travel, what that looks like, how they communicate. My dad wants to pick up the phone, and because he's still going to work every day, I hear his stories as he's watching some of the Gen Z and how they work. And it is interesting how you can meet the different needs of how everyone grew up. And as someone mentioned, I think in the comments, like, there's going to be a workforce that never knows what a passport is or never had a passport stamp. But that's kind of the things that we need to be thinking about as we try to meet the needs of the different generations in the workforce.
And I think that that's what's just so unique. And when we talk about organizations really looking at their programs and, all of these different generations and all of these different factors, and, our C-suite is up here saying, we want innovation, we want AI, and we want you to automate. I think that really you can still balance having, that human-centric touch. I mean, like Benivo is supporting clients across the globe. We have consultants, we have VIP consultants, we have specialized teams.
That's such a great point to make, because, a lot of people think Benivo, they think technology.
Yeah.
But actually, Benivo is a relocation company that is supported by groundbreaking technology, and it is a have it both solution.
It's a have it both. So
supply chain.
Exactly. And so when we talk about these 5 different generations, and obviously your executives are going to be at that little bit, different level here, right? Your VIPs, but then you have that younger generation. I mean, I have a 21 and 19-year-old, and I can tell you that they know email is antiquated, and now they don't even text anymore. So, you have to have these like user grade experiences, allowing them to have that wisdom of the herd, and being able to share the insights. If you're able to blend those products together where you have that high touch, you still have the people behind it. You never get rid of that people touch. It's still there. But then you're also able to appeal to the younger generations and offer products that are more centric to their specific needs. They're all about speed. They're about speed, connection, request. I mean, I give you an example. My 19-year-old, he hurt his hand, and he's like, I need you to get me into an orthopedic doctor today. It just didn't happen like that. They don't understand, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to move on a bit, because I know there's some technology we want to show too. But just before we do, I mean, we've talked about the significance of personalized support. How does this reinforce, Laurie, a company's commitment to its talent?
I believe that tech enablement allows for more personalized support, right? It's going to free up the time for us as humans to be there when people need our hand-holding, our guidance, our personal words of encouragement the most. And when you have the data, and you have the data that is organized in a way that it is relevant and actionable, it helps ensure that your talent strategy is moving forward and you have the time for the humans and the strategy. I'm not sure that totally came out great, but
it does. I'm with you, but I'm going to move on, because I'm keen to start showing and talking about a bit of technology. So Meredith, I'll just move on to you, if I may. And really, I suppose as companies become more strategic in their programs, what are the challenges they face, and what can we do, and especially what can we do with technology to ensure that we can achieve their strategic goals? And let me know, share a screen, and we'll talk about something.
Right, exactly. Thank you so much. So, this is something that we talked about. We know that, and Laurie and I were speaking about this. I mean, data, there's data, okay? Everybody has data. They have subsets of data, but what we're finding is a lot of organizations, their data's in multiple different systems. I mean, and I've heard of some companies even working across 10 different types of technology and not able to get everything in one location. So when we talk about, strategy, and I mentioned it early on, and even from the survey that was done from Vialto Partners, automation, AI, integrations, this is key of mind. And there's plenty of reports out there that, the C-suite trend from Mercer and also from Gartner. If you read that, it's really about, automating workflows. And, executives say AI is not going to replace humans. They believe that it's going to add jobs. And when we talk about this data and really being strategic, it's about being able to show your strategic partnership and taking your data and having your data work for you by automating it. And I think that, that's a great opportunity of how our mobility professionals and their roles, because they've had to take on more populations and different populations. It's not the same, like Laurie mentioned earlier. It's not just all short-term assignments, long-term assignments. their mobility teams are taking on business travelers, work from anywhere, self-initiated moves, that workforce and how those moves are taking place, and the benefits have to flex too, right? It's not just a lump sum STA, LTA, one-way perm. There's multiple different types in order to deal with the different strategic initiatives of organizations. So, and having data to support these initiatives and show the value, I think it's powerful. So if we want, at any point in time, Brian, I can go ahead and share my screen and just give an example.
Right? Okay, let's do that now. I think I've got your screen here. I can bring on stage.
Perfect.
So I'm just sharing your screen now. So tell me what we're looking at, and what I like about this stuff is that basically there used to be data, and I think these days there's conversations that you can actually talk to your dashboards.
Exactly.
Tell me a bit about this.
Exactly. So capturing your data and having it work for you. So this is just one example of, how we've captured data for clients. And now, not only do we have the humanized approach, but we've got a technology system that can take this data. And as you can see, like this one, it's giving a summary of what are my business travelers? Where are my short-term assignments? How many does that look like? Where are my interns? What about my early careers or my new hires or my university hires? And so Mobility now has the opportunity, and even from larger leadership, to go back into their organizations and say, okay, we've got data that we can give to you instantaneously. Here's how we're supporting the organization on a more
people need that. I'll give you one example just from a couple of weeks ago. Everybody in the US in mobility needed to know where their H-1B visa people were in case they had to get back on a plane and come back. I know it didn't work out quite like that, but that's how everybody at the time was instantly burning the midnight oil, because they needed to know, where is everybody right here, right now?
Yes. Exactly. And, and that's what they're looking for. And if you want to stop sharing my screen, Brian, what I'll do is let me show you another example of how we have data working, for our clients. It's important that they have access to this information and being able to talk about that. Right. So give me just a second as we transition over. I'll give you an idea of that. So, all right. I'm great to share my screen now. Thank you.
Okay, so let's pull up your screen again.
Sorry, it's starting to restart. Hey, security.
Okay, I'll take that off. So tell me, that's the beauty of live demos. Tell me what we're going to be seeing.
Yeah, so basically we're going to be looking at, just even about that immigration, right? We had a client that came to us with a specific need. She had received some very high invoices, and she didn't have access to her data from her multiple immigration providers. And I'm good to share the screen. We've reset from security, but
there we go. Okay.
We were able to work with this client and create this amazing dashboard where we were able to give her all of her information, from expiration days, processing times, step by step on the SLAs, so that now she had that detail where she could get it within seconds. Now we're looking at, okay, I can tell a business I'm working on a project, right? I can say, listen, our average processing time with our current providers is around 101 days, right? I can see now where steps are holding up and how we're, how my immigration providers are performing against, against the metrics that we've agreed upon. I can even see what visa and permit types I have, and I can even see where they are and where my populations sit. So, it really is making the data work for these organizations and building a product that's meaningful to them, but we're giving them back. So we're able to give them more logic and information that they're able to share on a larger level and within seconds. So now they can drill down into this and really be strategic with their programs. And this is only a couple of samples of what's available. So, but at least it showcases how they're being more strategic and why they're taking on these different populations. Even with expirations, like you mentioned, they're getting smart notifications. We even have dashboards that'll, we'll notify them, when there's going to be an expiration, so that there's more, more strategy to be proactive versus reactive. All right, we can stop share.
Sure.
But there's a human side to that too, right? when you have the information at your fingertips, you're not stressed out about where do I look? I can't remember where that data was. And then if you're able to be proactive related to a project, or, you know what I mean, catch something early before it becomes an emergency, that impacts people's lives in that moment, helping at least reduce stress and give extra time for planning or figuring out what to do next.
Now, I think it's all about managing expectations. And one of the things that has always upset me a bit about our industry is the fact that we tend to get better service in our everyday life, our retail life, than we do in our professional life. And I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again now, is that, you know, historically, we get much better technology when we're ordering a pizza than we do when we're managing a relocation. Because if I order a pizza, then I know exactly where it is in the process. The order's been accepted, it's in the oven, it's with the driver, it's going to be with me in 2 minutes or 10 seconds or whatever, and I can track it all the way through. Historically, we haven't been able to get that with, say, a tax return or an immigration process or a relocation process. And what we're doing here is we're providing that. And that's what we did on that previous screen there. If I might just put it back on stage there so people can see it, is you can see the various steps there. And once you've got those steps, you've broken down the process so you can see it step by step. That means that the individual concerned or the person managing that individual can know where they are. But also, in terms of looking at in the aggregate, in the round, as an organization, you can see, well, these are the stages where we have problems. These are the stages where maybe we need to be looking at what's going wrong. And this is, you know, to carry on the analogy, this is why the pizza is cold when it arrives. It's because this went wrong or that went wrong. It wasn't the restaurant's fault, it was the delivery driver's fault, or this or that. That logic can apply exactly the same way in our industry. And that's where data actually makes the employee experience so much better. So that's my thesis out there is let's have technology that's as good as a pizza delivery. And well, I think we do with Benivo, but it's always going to get better. I mean, whatever technology we all look at now is the worst version we're ever going to see, because technology only ever gets better.
Right. I mean, and, you know, Brian, you really touched on it, because, you know, when you look at the different types of populations, I mean, I talked about them early on. We're talking about multi-generational workforce, multiple different types of service delivery models, the expectation, right? Now we're talking about, you know, different types of policy structures, you know, that have to come into play, and cost when it comes into it. And so then if you can have, you know, if you can have a product and you can have a service that can touch all of these different levels and be able to give that strategy back to you, it really works. And I think I was telling you earlier, you know, about a month ago, I met with an amazing global mobility leader, and, you know, she's an incredible individual, very seasoned, and she got a new VP, and, you know, it broke my heart in our conversation when she says to me, she goes, you know, again, this come from C-suite, but she goes, my new boss told me that, you know, he thought I was, you know, an overpaid paper pusher because she didn't have her systems integrated, and she was basically manual, you know, Microsoft Excel spreadsheets, you know, multiple data points. I mean, it broke my heart to hear that when we know that there's availability of tools to support.
Okay, so let's move on. I know there's another demo we want to talk about, but
right.
I want to just understand this. We're talking about flexibility and adaptability. Can you maybe illustrate a bit how modern solutions can offer flexibility to accommodate different types of populations and benefits beyond traditional assignments? So just show me what we can do for flexibility.
Yeah, I don't know, Lloyd, did you want to touch on flexibility a little bit, or do you want me to?
I can just say in a conversation yesterday, we were talking about how much business travel they're doing. And then you hear Eileen talk about the Mobility Matters survey, and she's talking about how important compliance is, right? So all of these different populations, and now people are looking at different ways, whether it's commuters, rotationals, business travel, all of these things. roll up to making sure things are compliant. Do you want to continue, Meredith?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. And honestly, some of the things that obviously, when it comes to an organization's, strategy and their goals and their structure and what they're looking to achieve, there's always going to be a top down, right? So Brian, I'm happy to share my screen just to give.
Let me do that. Okay.
Yeah, just to give an example. So, we actually had a client come to us and, again, mobility teams taking on more, right? Some of them are even taking on contingent workforce, but we actually had a mobility director come to us because their company had a DEI&B initiative and they did not have data to strategically support where they could go to the organization, how mobility was actually supporting that specific program. So we worked with those teams and our wonderful, product developers were then able to give them their data on their population. We're now just something, where you wouldn't really think about it, but now we gave them a tool where mobility could show their strategic partnership with the organization on a high level initiative. And now they can break down their populations. What does it look like? And this is their data that's captured. And obviously this is a different site.
That's so cool. Tell us a bit about it. Yeah, I can see there's LGBTQI data there. There's
yes.
Distribution. Tell us a bit about what we're looking at here.
Right. So what we're looking at is we're looking at a dashboard that's capturing the information from their HRIS system, whether that's Workday, Oracle, SAP, or however that looks, or their ATS. And now we were able to give them workforce management tools where they could show not just the DEI&B, but like we talked about the different generations. Now they were able to go in and say, okay, 59% of our workforce is, millennials. And how is that affecting that? And then they were able to break it out even by management, where they were located, what were the family size. But this allowed the organization not just the ability for mobility to show how they were supporting their this strategy, but now they got a workforce planning tool, because then they could start really taking a look at the infrastructure of the individuals on assignment and making it more equitable and finding ways to support talent, finding ways to support the company to really take advantage of their workforce and their demographics. So I thought that was really an interesting way to show, again, how this works for them.
That's great. Moving on, there's another area I want to talk about, which is that, technology is great, but it's part of the bigger picture. In fact, it supports the bigger picture, which is all about being there for the people who are moving. Tell us a bit about how it works with hand-holding and just the ease of transition as well. Just tell us a bit about hand-holding and ease of transition.
Yeah. So I don't know, Laura, if you wanted me to go or...
Go for it.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Well, thank you. So, I think what's really important to remember is that every organization, they obviously have their programs, they have their directives, they have their goals, they have their strategies, and finding organizations that can support them in their goals and their strategies, but that they're flexible and that they can build these different models for these different populations. That is huge. And being able to offer that hand-holding support, because technology never replaces the people. Lori already mentioned it, right? And their employees still need support, and they still need the human element to be able to, hold their hands. And so, for example, like VIP moves. I know Lori's got a great one, where we handle high-level VIPs, and most of the time there's a proxy or, an executive assistant, behind the scenes, supporting the move and being able to give technology so these executives can see exactly what's happening, and the family access too. It's a good blend. And so when companies are really looking for, support with their organizations, I feel like they really need to keep their eyes, keep open, keep a broader scope, because you do have to think about all these different things that now they're having to, to deal with in their jobs. Lori, do you want to give some examples?
So actually, no, but I just want to jump in. We're getting towards the end of the hour, and I just wanted to ask one last question really of both of you, which is, before we wrap up, what is, and I need a short answer, what is the key takeaway or the key piece of advice that you would offer to companies looking to navigate the changing landscape of mobility and emphasizing the importance of high touch service to combine with technology? What's the key the key takeaway you want to leave people with?
I hope this I feel very passionate about is that right now in the world that we live in, an open mind and curiosity are key. Explore. It's almost like if you dream it, it almost can be, right? It's crazy, but have an open mind. Things don't always have to be done the way they've been done before. It's amazing what can happen.
Okay, so an open mind and dream it. If you dream it, it can happen. Meredith, what about you? What's your key takeaway you want to leave?
So my key takeaway, I'm going to say, don't be afraid of change. Just because something different or it's, not the norm or, it's not how it's always been, embrace it. Because I look at my generation and, I started with the typewriter. Okay, I hate to admit that, but I took typing classes in high school.
Me too. I admit it.
And now, I'm using AI and I'm becoming a prompt engineer. So don't be afraid of change. Be open, be receptive, and know that it's a good thing. We've seen a lot of it happen. So I would say that.
There used to be an old joke which doesn't even work anymore, which just shows change is inevitable, apart from a vending machine.
That's actually really funny because my costume
doesn't work because you can't. Vending machines don't even give you change these days. It's all you touch your card there.
My costume was going to be the tech graveyard, and all the tech that I've used in my past is no longer relevant.
Oh dear. So we're getting towards the end of our period. Really, I just want to thank you guys and just remind everybody, we've talked a lot about technology and we do have the nominations open for the top 100 AI champions. So if you know anybody who has got a passion for AI, and especially if you know someone has done something cool, something funky with, it might be a prompt they're using, it might be a use case. But if you know someone who's done something really cute, really nice with using AI in their life, or maybe it's you can self-nominate, then just go onto that website. It's on the Benivo website, the top100.benivo.com, and nominate yourself or nominate anybody you know, and let's celebrate people who are taking a real passion for this technology. All that remains, I'm going to bring on Julie and Eileen to join us. Julia had to leave us, and Claire also left us because she's got a big conference to organise for next week. But Julie,
you forgot me, Brian, and I think you also forgot
the most important person of the lot.
I think you also did mention next week. So next week we have the amazing Sophie Holtman from News Corp. So I'm really looking forward for that show.
Absolutely, and Sophie is I think she's the head of HR strategy at News Corp, so a very, very senior person. Her perspective is going to be fascinating. So yeah, we've got Sophie Holtham joining us next week. So we are now out of time, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been The View from the Top. Take care, everybody, and have a great, great week. And for those of you who are going to FEM in London, I look forward to seeing you there next week. Take care and goodbye.